What's up, guys? It's been a moment, but welcome back to the channel. I took a long break, and what a coincidence that my last video was about the Nissan Z. I know it's been a few weeks since that first Nissan Z commercial appeared, but I wanted to take some time to digest the information. With the current state of the world and Nissan's financial troubles, it looks like they are still pursuing the next generation Z with chassis code Z35. We've seen many sports cars become discontinued recently, and it's surprising yet fulfilling since it's been 12 years and now they've decided to do it. Sports cars are low volume for manufacturers, and in the case of the Z, it's the second slowest selling car for Nissan, with number one being the GTR. But that's not the point, because having a sports car is all about image for a company. Just imagine the Nissan lineup without the more affordable Z sports car. So what are we to expect with this new Z? Well, I've made a prediction video several months ago and things seem to have come true. We've all seen the new Nissan commercial, which introduced us on what to expect in the upcoming 4 years for their next generation of models, and it's all part of Nissan's next initiative, which is cutting down costs and even removing models and brands that aren't beneficial to the company. Guess what wasn't in the new Nissan commercial? Yep, the Silvia. Yeah, I know, everyone's been waiting for a long time now for a fun, great handling, semi-powerful, lightweight, mod-friendly, rear-wheel drive sports car. But no, guys, I'm just kidding. The GTR was missing from this commercial, and being that this commercial was to introduce the upcoming 4 years new generation models, it doesn't look like we're going to be seeing the next generation GTR anytime soon. Rumors are saying that we'll see the Z in 2021 as a 2022 model, and that's quick, but I'm not too sure if it's a great idea with this pandemic going on. Maybe in limited numbers depending on customer demand, but it seems that they're going to use the existing 370Z platform as a foundation, but heavily updated. That shouldn't be too much work, while also cost effective, and get this Z out to market sooner compared to designing a whole new specific platform just for the Z. I'm not sure what may be interchangeable between the two, but I'm sure we'll find out eventually. As far as the naming system, I know everyone's calling it a 400Z at this moment, but if they keep to convention like past Zs, it's always been based on engine displacement. 2.4 liters is 240Z, 2.6 liters 260Z, 2.8 liters 280Z, 2.8 liters is 280ZX, 3.0 liter 300ZX, 3.5 liter 350Z, 3.7 liter 370Z. You get the idea. This next generation Z using a 3-liter engine should be called the 300Z. This name hasn't been used before. If you want to make it cooler since it has twin turbos now, then 300Z twin turbo. From a marketing perspective, 400Z sounds better since it's a larger number than the previous generation's 370Z. But guess what? 400Z twin turbo sounds even sweeter. If they go with the 400Z naming system, then it moves to a horsepower-based naming system. And what if there's a higher output Z like a Nismo? Does it get a new model designation like Nismo 420Z? Will the Z remain at 400 horsepower and not increase with special trims because it's known as the 400Z, and let's say this continues for another 10 years? Things start to get confusing and repetitive, but I guess it makes sense from a Nissan perspective. Not mine, since the Skyline, in our case G35, transitioned to G37 and is now called a Q50 or Q60. So the 370Z can transition to a 400Z, I guess. Remember, not my sense. Nissan only got a trademark for the letter Z, so maybe adding anything beyond that doesn't have any leverage to the iconic Z brand, since in Japan it's called the Fair Lady Z, and not here because it doesn't sound as masculine to buyers in the US. Or maybe it's just simply going to be called a Z, which works also. Let me know what you think it should be called in the comments section below. Nissan might be watching, and maybe, who knows, maybe they'll take your advice or my advice. And that brings us to the looks of the car. It's going retro. First generation 240Z retro. My predictions were correct in my last video, so without anything formal from Nissan, you're welcome, Nissan. They've already exhausted the modern looks of the Z, so going retro with a modern Z may capture a customer base who harkens to the glory days of the Z's first appearance as the 240Z, just like how Ford, Chevy, and Dodge went retro on the Mustang, Camaro, and Challenger. The Commercial with the Z silhouette looks like it'll have larger grills in the front, similar to the 240Z, which should definitely help with cooling because that was the issue with the 370Z and that was without turbos also. In certain angles, it almost looks Porsche-like. The rear is square looking from the video and it may take its design cues from the 300ZX. It looks awkward, but I'd like to see it in full first before further judgment. I really don't care much about the interior. As far as it looks modern and updated and I guess more refined, they just can't compete with BMW, Porsche, Audi, or any other manufacturer's interior. But if they can provide the performance with a lesser interior but at a better cost, then that would be acceptable, which I'll get to in a bit. One thing I like about the old 240Z was the amount of engine bay space it had in the front. I've seen V8s, V10s, and even V12s being swapped into them. Let's just hope in the modern Z's case that there's enough room to work in there. It's one thing to cram an engine in there, but it just deters tuners from modifying because it's no longer fun. If you've ever worked on a 300ZX twin turbo, then you would know. As I mentioned, the next generation Z will most likely be using the 3-liter V6 from the Q50 and Q60. Remember in 2013 that the Q50 and Q60 were initially offered with the VQ37 VHR and later replaced by the VR30 DDTT in 2016. So the transition should be quite simple between these two engines. There will most likely only be one engine offered. Here's why I believe this. The VR30 DDTT found in the 300 horsepower and 400 horsepower versions, even though rated differently, are the same engine with very minor differences. The 400 horsepower Red Sport receiving an optical turbo speed sensor, 2 intercooler pumps, and an increase in boost pressure. It wouldn't make any sense to use the 300 horsepower version because the current 370Z makes 332 to 350 horsepower. That doesn't look good for the next Z. I'll be making a separate video all about the VR30 DDTT engine and its limits and go into more detail because I don't want to take away from this video, which is about the upcoming Z. So hit that subscribe button and notification bell to know when it's out. Also, don't forget to hit that like button because if you've gotten this far, you've definitely enjoyed this video. So going back to the horsepower topic, what about the Nismo? It would need more power, right? Yes, it's going to receive a power increase from the standard, but maybe only up to 450 horsepower from probably a larger exhaust, ECU retone with increased boost pressure. Not much of a power increase from my perspective, but remember, Nissan is very conservative. And going off of that conservative mentality, we'll have to wait and see because the Nismo GTR only received a 50 horsepower increase from the standard GTR, but that also involved larger Nismo turbos, which were more capable. Maybe we'll get this option in the next Nismo Z also, since the VR30 stock turbos look to be overworked already in stock form. Of course, in addition to the Nismo Z, there will also be sport suspension, slightly better tires, and some aero. So Nissan and Nismo don't really go all out and make extreme versions of their cars by adding lots of horsepower and race tires. At this point, from my perspective, it's mostly just marketing with the Nismo brand because in the end, there are marginal performance gains which you could do better going aftermarket. Now let's talk about the transmission. The next Z will most likely use the 370Z's 6-speed manual transmission because they've adapted one to it in the past with the Club Sport 23 experiment. They apparently only developed a clutch kit and flywheel and it worked with the VR30 DDTT. I kind of had to question that, but as you can see, here are the backs of those engines. The left is the VQ37 VHR and on the right is the VR30 DDTT. Yes, it's not to scale guys, so don't get all upset. But the transmission mounting locations are exactly the same. The flywheel bolt pattern on the crankshaft looks to be the same also. So you can see that there's interchangeability between these two engines. To what extent, I don't know. There will also be a 7-speed automatic option and that will be the same one from the Q50 or Q60, which is the same one from the 370Z but reprogrammed. Are you confused yet? I know I was. It isn't highly regarded by the car media, but I'd also expect to see it in the upcoming Z, and hopefully it's programmed to be sportier. There might be another option though, but I'm not sure it'll fit. There is a 9-speed automatic being used in the upcoming Nissan Frontier, which also uses a 3.8 liter V6. That might be better because it has more gears, which could help with placing the engine's power band in ideal areas. The Infiniti Q50 or Q60 also has an option for all-wheel drive, but I don't think it's going to be used in the Nissan Z because it has always been rear-wheel drive, and going all-wheel drive would intrude on the GTR's territory. The all-wheel drive transmission is only offered in automatic, so that may not be a good option for manual enthusiasts. I can already see someone out there doing an all-wheel drive conversion on their Z just for the challenge and just to get the all-wheel drive. It would be sweet though to have a cheaper alternative to the GTR. There wasn't really a target for the next Z, but we know that by default, its arch nemesis is the Toyota Supra, now just manufactured by BMW. They both have similar features, being front engine, rear-wheel drive, 2-seaters, and using a 3-liter 6-cylinder turbo engine. So performance should be similar. So now for the bench racing. I'm only going to focus on straight line numbers. So here it is. The 5th generation Toyota Supra's performance numbers are 0 to 60 at 3.8 seconds with a quarter mile of 12.3 at 113 miles per hour, and weighs in at 3,372 pounds with a base price of $50,920. The Infiniti Q60 Red Sport has a 0 to 60 of 4.5 seconds with a quarter mile time of 13.3 seconds at 109 miles per hour, and weighs in at 3,866 pounds with a base price of $57,150, which is much more than the Supra. The current Nissan 370Z has a 0 to 60 of 5 seconds with a quarter mile time of 13.6 seconds at 106 miles per hour, and weighs in at 3,327 pounds with a base price of $30,090. And the 370Z Sport, which includes LSD, larger brakes, 19-inch wheels, starts at $33,820. So you're talking about almost a $17,000 difference between a Nissan 370Z and a 5th generation Toyota Supra. So comparing the weight of the Q60 Red Sport to the 370Z, that's a 539-pound difference, which is a lot. If Nissan can keep the weight, including turbo plumbing, to around 3,300 pounds, then it should be okay, especially when they're adding 400 turbocharged horsepower, which should bring it in line with the Supra's performance numbers. So this next Z should also be capable of high 12s with a 0 to 60 of around 4 seconds. I'm gonna go out and say that the auto transmission will be faster and more consistent than the manual. So I'm sorry guys, if you're a manual purist, it's just the reality. The Supra has an advantage with having a better automatic transmission, while the Z offers a manual transmission for manual enthusiasts and an auto, which is kind of sketchy. The Z from inception was an affordable sports car for the masses that gives the customer the best performance per dollar, that also had looks from various manufacturers of the time. As far as pricing goes, I would think it would fit within the range of the Q60 3.0T's rear-wheel drives range, and that is a base price of $41,350. This price reflects Infiniti's luxury tax, and being that the Z is a Nissan, it shouldn't start any higher than this because of its branding. Also, being about $10,000 cheaper might entice customers to buy a Z instead of a Supra or even a C8 Corvette and use that leftover money for some aftermarket upgrades. This might be a bad time for the world with car sales plummeting, but it's a great time to see that the never-ending battle between the Nissan Z and BMW Supra will continue in the next decade. If you found this video informational, it would be much appreciated if you hit that like button and share this video with your local groups or forums to support my channel, to motivate me to get more content like this out for you guys. Also hit the subscribe button and notification bell for future content. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.